recently, you know, to get in the mindset for this podcast, I was like, I got to go back and watch The Karate Kid, you know, because that was the movie that got me into karate. I mean, that was the main reason was that beautiful story about a master and a student kind of thing. That relationship he has with his Miyagi sensei there was for me like it was so moving when I saw it as a kid. And so when I got my ass kicked in the street fight, I was like, well, man, I got to do karate. I got to learn karate. This is what I got to do. And that movie was really the instigator for that.
Yeah, I remember reading that and hearing you in interviews talking about it. And then you talked about doing your own version of waxing on, waxing off at Hambu.
Oh yeah, and there was a lot of waxing on the floor. I mean, you know, I'll tell you what though. This is what really shits me about the whole situation when I think back upon it. It's like, so when I came to Japan as an 18-year-old kid, I had this vision and dream that I would be like the Karate Kid. It would be like the Karate Kid, except the karate that they teach in the movie is it's Okinawan karate.
Yes, yeah.
So it and I've been to Okinawa with a TV show called Samurai Spirit.
I saw it. I saw them. Yeah.
Yeah. So Samurai Spirit took me down to Okinawa, and I tried Okinawa karate for like firsthand. I was there for like a week, and we were shooting a whole week and everything. We went down to a couple of different dojos, and some dojos actually turned us down. They're like, no, we don't want this guy coming in because he's Kyokushin. We don't want it.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was a little bit hard to find out which dojos would really accept us. But we went into something called Uchi-deshi, I think was one of them. And then this other guy that had his own style, which was completely whacked. It was so funny. It was hilarious. But for me, when I came to Japan, this is what I wanted to say. I said, when I came to Japan, I had this vision of being like a relationship between, you know, me and Sosai was going to be something like the Miyagi sensei. And it really was, except there was a big except. A Kyokushin is so different from what they show in that movie. It is completely the opposite. Sosai, one of the first things he said to us is like, okay, if you ever find yourself in a street fight, make sure you hit first and then run. And I was like, what the hell are you smoking? Like, what?
Karate-do, only defense. Karate-do, only defense.
Serious, man. It's like, yeah. And so, well, Okinawa karate style, it's like they have this thing called sente nashi. And sente nashi is that you never strike first.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
like,
it.
Yeah, this is like the whole philosophy. And so here I come to Japan, and then it's all about fighting and then hitting first. And I was like, shit, I just stepped into Cobra Kai.
Sweep the leg, Nicholas.
It is, man. Sweep the leg. You got a problem with that? Yeah. And so that was for me. It was very confusing as a teenager, coming to Japan and then like seeing that style. I mean, it's not style, but it just wasn't. You know, it was before the internet. It was before people knew what they were really talking about. It was like, I feel like, and I still feel it's probably like that because you just said it yourself. Like the karate in Japan, like the Kyokushin karate taught in Japan, is pretty damn hardcore.
Yeah. Like
this like, especially back in the day, not so much now. I don't think so. I wouldn't really know, but I don't think it's as hard as it used to be because you have many more options for martial arts. Like jiu-jitsu is now very popular in Japan, and it's like karate is kind of like one of those things that's been really struggling for a long, long time, in my opinion, looking at it from an outside.
It's part of the reason I do this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, because karate is, for me, it's a very beautiful thing. It is. It is an amazing thing to be able to dedicate yourself to something like that, and then because you really can only learn something out of full contact karate that you can only from full contact karate. And I think it's very valuable, and a lot of people should know about it, and they should definitely do it. It's also one of the reasons why I decided to like embrace who I am again and say, hey, you know, I did this for almost 30 years, and let's like say, you know, I have a book that I definitely want to promote the book that I decided to read. Oh man, that's the first book. And then so I just think that, you know, it's for me like this whole YouTube channel thing opening up for something. It's like I got to embrace who I am again, and I got to be proud of who I am. And many people ask me, because I get like literally daily friend requests from someone that says, "Oh, sensei, or Shihan this or Shihan that. And it's like, I never taught you. You're not my student. You don't have to say like, it's completely weird, but it's also completely natural. And it's very it's like, it's very humbling, right?
Yeah.
So so this quarantine opened up for a couple of things for me. For me, it was like I wanted to do a YouTube channel for a while. I started back in 10 years ago when YouTube first started, and I was like, hey man, this is really cool. I can just talk to the phone and post a video instead of like typing a blog. And I started it, but it was really like, it was horrible. I went back and looked at all the old videos I had from 10 years ago. And I kind of gave up on it at one time. And I was like, you know what? It's all shit. So I'm going to delete it all. So I deleted like, I think almost 400 videos that were up on my YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
And then so then I started thinking more about it. And I'm thinking, well, how can I really make this into something that could be fun for me? And then I came up with the concept for the Tokyo show.
Yeah.
And the Tokyo show was really for me to just go out there and experience Tokyo, because I like a good burger. I like a craft beer. You know, there's amazing pizza restaurants here. There's amazing food here. There's amazing things to do. And with the Olympics coming, it would be cool for having someone to say, hey, this is what you can do. So that started it. That's what it started with for me. It's like, okay, I got to try and see if I can make this Tokyo show into something. And then you started you start tossing ideas around, well, what could the Tokyo show be? Is it just a blog, or is it a vlog, or is it about CrossFit? And so I went with what I had at the time, and it was just like, I started with the iPhone and just walking around and then filming us, renovating the gym, because we were pros. And so it started like that. And then I was like, well, you know what? Maybe, I need to build on that character that people used to know as the Blue-Eyed Samurai. And for me, that is all in this book that I have, right? Yeah. It's like the roots for everything. Like the reason for me still being in Japan is because I came to do this Uchi program and everything. And I edited the book once and edited it again and revamped it and sold it again for a while. And then there was a point in my life where I was like, no, you know what? I feel like I went too deep in that book. Like, because for me, it was like a cleansing process of just like getting it out of my system. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but just getting it out of the system and onto paper. And it took me like 10 years to complete the whole book, because I was only writing on it when I was injured. If I was in training, I wouldn't have the patience to sit down and then type something like that. So when the book is finalized and I started feeling a little bit embarrassed about the material in it, I shut down all the sales channels. It was on, you could have, like back in the day, it was available on any like book channels like Amazon and everything.
I think that's where I got mine.
And so and it was kind of a cool thing to do, but at the time I thought this is going to be a huge success and everything, but it wasn't really for the success or not success of it. It was for me to write everything down as it was while I could still remember it. And the most amazing thing happened while writing it. It's like going back in time. Like whatever story or topic I pick in the book, it's like going back to that specific moment in my life, and it all really just comes back like that. It's a crazy experience. And this audio book that I came up with, and I got to be completely honest here, this is not really an audio book.
Well, I saw your recent clip. I know what you're going with this, I think.
It was supposed to be an audio book, but every time I start reading a chapter, I do this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go off script here. Because the emotions come back, and it's like I can better explain it with my mouth than I can by just reading it. And it's I've done 6 chapters now. So I'm like, it's like I'm in, 100 pages into the book. So there's another 18 chapters or something like left in it. And so another 400 pages. And it's like the most bizarre thing happened. For me, it is like I was in chapter 2, and chapter 2 is the chapter where I am in Denmark, and I'm about to leave, and I'm going in the airport, and all my friends are out there in the airport, and they were wearing their doggies, and we did like karate, out in the airport, man. It was just really awesome. And then I walk up the stairs, to go to the airplane and give my mom the last hug, right? And there's this 18-year-old kid, man, walking away from Denmark and all his friends and everything. And dude, man, I started crying. Like reading the book, it was like, holy shit, I'm right back in that moment. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I remember my whole body shaking and everything, because this was really like, this was the day. That was that step. Man, it was the hardest long walk I've ever had in my life, man. My brother's like, Nico! He's calling out. I mean, fuck, man, talking about it now, I'm getting emotional. It's just,
Me too.
yeah.
Okay.
It's so good, man. It's like, for me, like to get the experience to do this and then be able to share it with someone out there. Maybe, you know, when I sign copies of this book, I always write meant to inspire.
It
So
certainly does.
if it inspires someone out there, well, then that would be like, just, you know, my happy days.
Look, I can tell you firsthand, like, okay, so I hope you don't mind, because I'm going to use all this material that we just use. I usually kick the podcast off a little different, but that was just great just hearing you say that. And I know for a fact, like, for me, this book inspired, oh my God, it inspired me so much. Like, your writing style, just, you really took me there. It was super emotional. Like, I felt like I was there with you. And
wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote, when I read this book, I wrote a review on it, and I don't know if you remember, but it was on my blog, and you actually went on there, commented, and said thanks for you know, for the review. You liked it, but it had a tremendous impact. And everybody I know, and I've lent this book out, I bought copies for other people, especially people who are starting in Kyokushin. It's so inspirational, and not just Kyokushin, actually, even just martial arts in general. It is so, this book could be a movie, literally. It is. It's like a script for a movie.
It feels like a movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it does.
Think about it. It's like literally, in 1991 in March, I arrived in Japan, and so it's literally 30 years now. Like next year in April, it's 30 years ago. But for me, even like when I get into the material and I start talking about it, it seems completely timeless. Like, to be honest, it's like, it was like the last 3 years with Oyama Masatatsu were really timeless, and they were magical. And it was such a beautiful time because I had no worries in life. Like, the only thing was I just wanted to train.
Yeah.
I swear, man, like, people were thinking, were calling me crazy and thinking, man, how can you do this? And how can you live that lifestyle? I was like a pig in shit, man. I was so happy, like, for real. This is like, I was living the dream. I loved it. I loved being an Uchi-deshi.
Yeah. And you saw students come and go that couldn't take it. So what, and I mean, and so many of us know stories that came out of that program, how hard it was. And I had Judd on the podcast. I mean, he talked Judd Reid, and he talked about it as well. So we know how brutal it was. What made you stay?
I love Sosai. Like, oh man, I would die for that guy.
Wow.
Like, for real. Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. I miss him. Oh man. Well, this wasn't supposed to happen, but wow. I really loved him. Like, for me, he was my Mr. Miyagi. And it's not even a joke. People don't understand it, man. I just, you know, I would have done anything, you know, to see him come into the dojo in the morning and just go, oosh, you know, and it wasn't because he wasn't doing anything special. It was just that whole persona, like, because
his presence.
He inspired. Oh shit, yeah. Give me a second there.
Yeah. Take your time.
He inspired me to be the best of me that I could be, you know. And it was like being in the presence of God, a living God for me. And when he said, you know, gain weight, I gained weight, you know, because it's gonna make me stronger. And if he wanted me to be stronger, that's just what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make him so proud. That year after I graduated and he passed away, I went on to to fight in the European heavyweight championships, which was to be the last time the European organization was as one, because the day after they had the branch chief meeting and they like split apart, right down the middle. People were going with Matsui or people were going with Midori, and it's like, so, but that was the last tournament when the Kyokushin in Europe was still one, and I knocked everyone out, like literally.
I know actually my instructor was there. He's told me stories.
Yeah, man, it was a different level, man. It was also on my mother's birthday, and I wanted to make her proud too. But like, for me, it was just like, Francisco Filio had flown all the way to Romania to watch this tournament because he wanted to know what to watch out for. And then when he saw me, he got scared. He actually got scared, and I didn't know this until way after he'd already beaten me. So it's kind of like I should have known, because I would have been, mentally stronger in the head when fighting him. But he was, he was pumped up to be a lot. But yeah, man, something strange happened in the final. I think it was the defending, the current, at that time, the current defending heavyweight champion was, he stepped up to the final to fight me, and then he did this. As he called the judge over and said, "I'm not fighting Nick." And I was like, "No way, man! It's the final. I don't care how hurt you are. I won't even kick you on the leg, but this let me fight for this." I mean, he's I literally knocked out the first 4 guys, and then when he'd seen that, everyone had seen that, and then in the final, he's like, "I'm okay. I don't need to be knocked down."
So
yeah.
I know something else from that. So my instructor was there, and he told me this story, and I think it was that tournament. He said where people were prepping at the tournament, they're going around, they're warming up, they're doing all this thing, and Nicholas Pettas had his headphones on, laying on at bleachers, just resting until your name was called, and then you just get up, walk through the tatami, do your business, knock him out, and just walk off. He said it was incredible to watch.
Yeah, and it's really true, because that's actually exactly what I did. I was like literally lying down the whole day, because like I didn't want to like use any energy, or I just wanted to be as fresh as possible. But it's true. I did something though that someone pointed out to me later, and I didn't realize that I was doing that. I was during that time I was going through a lot of self not cleansing, but self examination. I think I should say that. Like I was trying to examine myself because I didn't have a coach.
Yeah.
And it's not like Sosai was ever a coach. The only thing that really made me strong was that I had a fantastic fighting squad at Hombu at the time, led by Sugimura Senpai. And so we would train Monday night and Wednesday night, and then there would be like a black belt class on Fridays, and then I would do my own training on the other days. But this fighting squad was really what made me super strong, because it was like kill or be killed kind of attitude. We really fought and sparred like it was a tournament every day. But I did something during that time. It was 1995. I remember this very vividly, where I was like, how can I get mentally stronger? How can I get better at my craft? Because I always feel like I was missing something. And the Japanese would look at me and say, all you got to do to beat Nick is you just got to hang in there. This was their formula for them beating me, by the way. The formula was to not beat me. Like, just hang in there, because he's going to wear himself out. So if they could take the damage long enough, I would eventually gas myself out. And so I was going through this thing where I was like, how do I get better at this? How do I fix this deficiency? Because I really went in there to knock people out, not to win, but to knock people out. And there's a big difference there. People go in there and they fight, and it's all good, and then they're trying to do some points and this and that. I went in there to knock people out. I wanted to win by knockout, because then there would be no
questions.
No questions. Like, the judges would not be. I could not leave it to the judges. Yeah. I'm telling you the truth. If I left it to the judges, I would never win, and because they didn't want me to win. And I'm trying to look for this one fight that happened down in Osaka, which was the semifinal of the heavyweight Osaka All Japan weight division tournament. So I like destroyed the first couple of guys, you know, knocked them out with middle kicks and stuff like that. And there was a video of that somewhere on YouTube that I saw. And then I go up in the semifinal, and I think it's I can't remember who it is. I think Suzuki Kunihiro. And so I literally beat the crap out of him for 3 rounds. For 3 rounds, not just for the first round, but 2 extensions. And all he did was hang in there. And I didn't get gassed or anything. It was in the newspaper the day after. It's like, yeah, Suzuki Kunihiro got like boro boro ni saretan desu kedo. The whole crowd booed for that fight. Like booed when the other guy got the win. And it was like, how did he win? It's impossible that he won. I could have been the All Japan champion that year, but they wouldn't let me. And that's why I fought people to knock him out. So to go back to what I was trying to tell you before, I was like, what I did in that period, by the way, I read some books on sports science and stuff like that, and how you control your mind. And there was a really good book called Sports Mind, which stuck clearly in me. And it talked about cultivating the right mindset, as in you actually do mental drills, so that you incorporate mental training into your training. So I was going through sessions of mental prep things and stuff like that. And in those mental prep things, you teach your mind to envision yourself being the strongest and the best that you can. And so this becomes a really clear image inside your head, and you just repeat that and repeat that and repeat that. So in the European Championships, what I was doing is I would stand up when it was time to fight, and then I would talk to myself. I would just like constantly tell myself, you are who you are. This is your fight. This is what you want to do. This is what you're here for. And I would like walk around like a prancing tiger or something, like just like in the mindset, but building that mindset, right? And then I built a trigger, which someone might be smart enough to go out there and find it somewhere. But this is what I did after, before always walking in. I would wipe my face down, breathe out. And that was the trigger to get into that mindset. And it worked. It worked, man. It was amazing. It was amazing what it did. If anyone don't believe it, then I just suggest go out there, start reading up on it, and start incorporating a portion of your training to mental prep, like for real. It changed me.
Okay, so I just got goosebumps. You telling me that, because I have a background in neuroscience. Yeah. And what you just explained is neurolinguistics programming. Yeah. And it works. And I've been trying to preach this and tell this to people, but people think it's whatever. Especially what you just said, the trigger. Yeah, and you can anybody can have their own, and that was yours. In NLP, in neurolinguistics, they call it anchor. So that's your anchor. That's your thing that switches you. But you're absolutely right. If you can actually step into that new character. Yeah, it's everything you're saying is totally 100% legit. So
it's so cool, man. I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'll tell you what. And this, but see, so I took this to us. I would call it like self-science almost. I took it so far that oh man, this is gonna be a hilarious story, man. Hilarious story. So the last time I fought in the World Championships in 1999, I guess that was in the 7th World Tournament, right?
Yep.
I took this mind training to a completely different level. I saw the draw, and when you know who didn't really know the first guy. He was some Pakistani fighter that I'd never seen before, but you could kind of suss at my level, say, well, okay, that's not going to be hard. All I got to do is have the right mental image of how I would like to perform in the first fight. And then I see, okay, so in the second fight, this guy's probably going to come up. In the third fight, so I made this, charted it out, who's going to be where in which round. And then so I made a strategy to fight each fighter differently. And this is really interesting because you can go back and watch all my fights from that tournament, and you'll see that what I'm about to tell you now, it all played out exactly like that. So the first fight was all about just moving good, and I did, and I moved really well. I wasn't trying to knock him out. It was just about moving well. The second fight was, or the third fight, I'm not quite sure which one it was. I think it was the second or third fight. It was against a Japanese fighter. Actually, his name eludes me now. But he was one of those guys that used to say, like he used to stick to that strategy. To beat Nick, all you got to do is hang in there. And so if you hang in there and fight me just hard enough that you are not losing, then you could probably get the decision from the Japanese judges. Now, his problem was he didn't realize, not a problem, but he didn't realize that I knew that in the World Championships, it's not 5 Japanese judges. So, and I've never lost to a Japanese in the World Championships, but I've lost in the All Japan and all that stuff many times. And so I'm like, okay, this guy, I'm gonna use him to make a point. And my point was that you're not gonna beat me just by hanging in there. I actually made a conscious decision, making it a choice for me that I wanted to fight him for 3 rounds. I wanted to go to 2 extensions. And this is insane when you think about it. It's a huge gamble to take,
yes.
right? It's a huge gamble. But I was like, no. For me, the fighting at that point, it was not about winning or losing. It was about making a point out of something, right? Because I saw myself winning that year as the world champion. I had it visioned out, like, completely. I saw it. I was going to win that world championship, and I knew how to do it. And so that fight, I went in. Something happened, something really strange happened in the fight. He caught me with a knee kick, actually, in the first or second round, I think, and it really winded me. I've never got winded by anything in karate ever, but that kick winded me. And what I did was I started just going ki-eyes, man, going, and then I just pushed forward, man. It was an insane fight. Like, I was messed up, man. I was that close to falling. If he had been smart enough and capitalized on it, he could have taken me out, but he didn't. Anyway, so I fight for 3 rounds, which was the plan, by the way. It was completely what I wanted to do. Next one comes Kadoi, which was a Japanese up-and-coming fighter who was really good at the time. And the plan was to crush him in the first round. That was the plan. Literally crush him, like take him out as hard as I could. And I do that. So you see this one fight where, and I heard this from many people, said, what were you doing in that second round with the other guy, the Japanese? Why did it take you so long? Why? And it's like, but people don't realize that I had an agenda of my own.
Yeah, the game plan.
Yeah, I had a plan. So I crushed this guy, and then I can't remember what happened after that, but the plan went really, really well up until the semifinal. The dark horse. The dark horse that I never saw coming, and I never knew he was coming. I was supposed to fight Tamura, and it would be the 3rd time to fight Tamura Yoshinori, or Yoshihiro, whatever his name is, Yoshihito. Tamura senpai. But so I was supposed to take my revenge against him because it was the world championship, because it was not 5 Japanese judges, and because I knew how to do it. I had the vision of it. And then he gets knocked out by this Russian kid. And I'm like, what do I do with this kid? This is where the plan went wrong, because I didn't have a trigger for this one kid. I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a plan. I literally walked into that fight thinking, okay, I'm just going to kick him I'm just going to low kick this guy because he's tall. That was all that went through my head. I think on the first low kick I threw, boom, he countered with me a high kick. Unbelievable timing. Man, that guy was good. And no one saw that coming. So, I just learned a lesson that day. If you're doing mental prep and stuff like that, what you really, really got to do is that you have to have like a plan B or a plan, like something that you can rely on. But because I was like, everything went exactly according to plan. I went out of that tournament with 0 injury, by the way. Nothing,
wow.
not even a bruised shin or anything. 0 injury. Yeah.
Wow. So you prepare for the unknown as well.
Yeah, that would be a smart thing to do.
Yeah. So what about, was it frustrating for you that you weren't placing in those All Japans how you wanted to? Like, and why was it? Was it because you were a foreigner, you weren't Japanese? A
true story here. Here comes another true story. So they had the branch chief meeting before the 26th All Japan. And they get not all the branch chiefs in Japan, but a bunch of them get together, and then they decide on who's going to fight who. So the top 8 from the previous year get split out in all the groups so that they don't fight each other in the first or second round. The first and the second placer from the previous year is always number 1 or number 128. So that's pretty simple. That's also fair. So that if they're going to fight each other, it would be in the final again, kind of thing. Right. So I had entered that Japanese tournament that year, obviously. And so they knew I was in the draw, and it's just like, so they had this toss up in the air. They had this huge conversation going on. Well, what happens if Nick gets into the best 8? Because that tournament was the best 8 qualifier for the World Championships the next year, the following year, right? Mm-hmm. And so what happens? And they're like, well, he's not Japanese. So, I mean, what do we do? And they're like, well, can't he just fight for Japan? And some of the brand chiefs were saying, well, you know, he's practically Japanese. He was Sosai Uchi-deshi. Why can't we just let him fight for Japan? And they're like, no, because he's not Japanese, you know, although we understand that concept is probably pretty fair and could be okay, but he's not Japanese. So we have to have a spot for a Japanese fighter. And it's like, well, he's pretty good. What do we do if he gets into the best 8 anyway? And then this was a conversation that really went on.
Wow.
And then they came to the conclusion that he cannot get into the best 8 unless he wins by a knockout. Like, we could just, you know, we could just not give him the decision.
Wow.
That was a conscious made choice amongst the branch chiefs in Japan. And the reason I know this story is because my Uchi-deshi peer, the one that I spent 3 years with in the dormitory, Mahasan, he was pouring the tea for all the branch chiefs during that meeting. So it's true. It is the truth of it. And so I knew that walking into the tournament, and this is the tournament where I fought Okamoto Toru in the best 16. And you know, if you saw that fight, that it went the full extensions, and you also know, and everyone that were there, they knew this, that I won that fight. I completely won that fight. And then he gets the fight because they didn't want me in the top 8. Isobe Shihan was the referee of that fight, and I remember him laughing and smiling his face off when he went 1, 2, 3 and gave it to the Japanese. He had zero remorse about doing that. And that's because I was a threat to Francisco Filio at the time.
Wow.
And so at that point, to be honest, at that point, I'm just like, you know what? As a kid, I've given up my life for Kyokushin, and I've really become like one of the best like that was ever in there, and still I'm getting judged for not being Japanese, and still I'm getting not fair judging. And I think that this is one of the things for me that really crushed it for me, because it broke my heart. It's like I'd had enough. At that point, I was like, you know, I don't see the point in doing this anymore. The only chance that I saw was, okay, the World Championships, there's more foreign judges, and you know, it evens out. But even then, I mean, I could have been the Old Japan champion if I'd been judged fairly. Right. And it really shits me that I never became the Japanese champion. It really, really shits me. And then, like, training shifts over the years, and your perception of the training shifts, and your training partners change and stuff like that. And by the time I was like, I think 26, the K1 talks started up, and I was like, this is my chance to get out of it. This is for me to start over, to try something completely different. And the K1 at that time with Andy Hoog and everyone was friggin' amazing. It was golden time, man. It was like, I feel so lucky to be being part of that time.
We still watch it. It's amazing watching fights from that era. And what was like that transition from Kyokushin, no face punching, etc., moving into with some seriously high caliber kickboxers?
So they at the time when they got the offer from K1, Kyokushin wanted to test and see if there was any potential in someone like me, because they didn't really know. You never really know with this. Yeah. Because boxing is so far-fetched from karate. It's like, you know, I can remember the times I got kicked in the head. Alexander Pichinov, that time in the 7th World Tournament. The previous World Tournament was Francisco Filio. And then I got knocked out in sparring one time by Narashima Senpai. Yeah, for real, man. He clocked me, man. What? They dragged me out of the dojo. So those 3 times, I remember getting kicked in the head. And that's about it. Like, for real. Yeah. Like, that's about it. Maybe one time I sparred with Ikeda. Yeah, because I was, like, fucking around. I'd seen a Prince Nazim video. I was like, I can do this in karate, too. And then he kicked me in the head, too. Yeah, so that's 4 kicks in the head. There you go. And that's it, man. For real. So from going from that and having that super high pride about not getting your face touched, to getting someone like just smacking into it, man, it's bad. It's really bad. So what Kyokushin at that time did was they sent me on a training camp. It was Francisco Filio. Francisco had done something pretty crazy. He'd actually signed with an agent, and he was already signed and got a contract to fight in K1 without Kyokushin.
Oh.
Yeah, so he had a signed agent in Germany somewhere, and they had to buy him out of that contract. which they did, and they got him back to their own side. But because at the time they didn't want to let him fight. So he's like, you know what? I'm from Brazil. If I want to fight and make, several $100,000s, like, why not? And so they got him out of that contract, and then they signed him themselves. He was making really big money back then. And then so it was Francisco Filho, and he's like the guy that like paved that way. And then suddenly they're like, oh, Francisco Filho, if he can be a success, who else is out there? And so we looked at the top guys. It was Glauber Feitosa and then Nicholas Pettas. And then they also looked at Gary O'Neill. Like Gary O'Neill had actually had kickboxing experience. Yeah. He'd had like, I don't know, 7 fights or something back in Australia. And I think he won them all. So he was actually somehow experienced in this, right? So they sent us all on a camp up in Seattle at Maurice Smith's gym, the kickboxing something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we went up there, and
he's a great kickboxer himself, Maurice Smith.
Yeah, man. At the time, he was like 12 years undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. So that's like just incredible, like living legend kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But most of those kickboxings were without low kicks,
Yeah, above the waist.
Yeah. So that's like a big difference. But I mean, he's an incredible guy. I mean, I really love him. He comes to Japan once in a while. He's got a girlfriend over here and stuff like that. So every time he's here, we always hang out and stuff. I mean, it's really, really like he and I is also like one of those like brother relationships that we have, because I spent a lot of time in training in his gym, and we did some road trips together. Drove up to Canada to watch this underground fight.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was so shady, man. It was so shady. It was funny.
Was on a native reservation?
Hey?
On a native reservation?
No, man. I'll tell you a story. It's really funny because we went on a road trip, drove up to Canada, across the border and everything. And then we get to this warehouse, man, random warehouse where someone had put in like a boxing ring. And then suddenly in the afternoon, all these dudes like randomly show up. It was like so underground, man. It was like Fight Club. And then so there were a couple fights, and right in the middle of it, the police show up, and it's like shut everything down. It's like, what are you guys doing here? We're just filming a martial arts movie. It was so funny, man. Yeah. But yeah, so Maurice Smith, he is.
So was that was a good camp?
Yeah, well, the camp in itself was, for me at the time, it was, they did send us up there for a month. The first time to train there and see what Maurice Smith was then, his mission or his job was to like suss out who he thought would be suitable for K1.
Gotcha.
And his assessment of me was no way in hell.
What? Really?
Yeah. I said, out of the 4 guys, Nick kicks the hardest, like seeing like how we were training, he said, Nick kicks the hardest of all of those guys, but he's not a kickboxer. And it's because I didn't like the punching in my face, man. I really didn't like it. I really didn't like it. But
Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And so, so that camp didn't go very well, but I was pretty determined to do it.
Well, you ended up getting a championship in it, so obviously you must have been pretty determined.
Yeah. I mean, actually, but so what I did was, this is what happened. We got back to Japan and I trained with a Japanese trainer for a while, and we worked on, it was really like, just homemade stuff, like, how do these combinations work? And then I taught one of my kohai how to hold some pads, and I was like, this is how I want you to hold them, right? And working on combinations. And it was very self-taught in the beginning. I ended up getting a fight against Stefan Leko. And that day, I think it was both me and Glauber's first fight in the K1, and we both got knocked out. I think he fought Mike Bernardo that time. But I fought Stefan Leko, which I thought was a really good match because he wasn't very big. He's about my size, but, he's like a boxing guy. I thought maybe I had a good chance because I could, if I had a, kick him more, whatever. I thought I had a good chance at that time. But walking into the crowd in front of 27,000 people watching in Nagoya Rainbow Hall was friggin' intimidating as hell.
I bet.
And this is what people don't understand, like being a karate fighter and fighting in front of, 16,000 people in the world championships, that's not a problem. But when there's lights in there, they're around girls, and you're walking into this ring in the middle of it where all the eyes are on you, and it's just you and a pair of boxing gloves on. Are you kidding me, man? It was all the sparring I had done out the window. Everything. When I say I thought I had a good chance against Stefan Leko in the beginning, I had zero chance. I was so nervous. I was so scared. Didn't have any triggers inbuilt. I didn't have any mental prep done for this. So I just walked into it and thought, yeah, I'm just gonna kick. This was the plan. I'm just gonna kick. I mean, what kind of plan is that? Like, for real. So I started kicking, and he like just played around me for the first round, and then I think his coach said, "This guy can't box. Just fucking hit him." And in the second round, he literally just comes out, man, and clubs me, and that's it, man. I didn't know what was going on in there. I didn't get a chance to fight in the K1 for 2 more years after that. And during those during those 2 years, I went back to the Kyokushin Hombu and said, look, I need to stop karate. I need to stop teaching karate. I need to stop training karate. I need to start over. I need to start as a beginner in kickboxing. I need to start in the beginner's class where they teach you how to stand your guard, and they teach you how to do a jab. They teach you how to do a 1-2. This is what I need to go back and do. And I said, and I can't do it if I'm training karate and if I'm teaching karate here. And so I'm quitting. I said, I'm quitting karate for a while. And then they said, okay, but where are you going to train? Where do we want to do? And I said, I want to go to America because there was this Muay Thai coach called Saksan Janjira that Maurice Smith had introduced us to. We had done a camp in LA at one time, and I was I felt a really strong connection with this guy, and I wanted to learn Muay Thai because I thought Muay Thai is better than traditional kickboxing. This was just my opinion at the time, and so I thought if I could have gone to Thailand, but I didn't. I ended up going to this guy because in America, and it was a Muay Thai gym, and he trained me every day, worked with me on the pads for an hour every day. And he didn't even charge me anything. So like just normal regular membership. He just really liked me, and I really liked him. And it was like he would have me. He used to work as a janitor over on UCLA, and so he started like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he'd make sure that I would be over on the track and running and doing sprints and stairs and everything. So this was a fantastic coach, and I stayed with him for 6 months, and I trained, and I really just went back to the basics of everything. And so he taught me a lot of things. He also taught me that today you take a rest. You take a rest today. Tomorrow we go sparring. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so like he gave me a massage, the old oil massage.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this feels great, man. I feel like really pumped. It's like, no training today, no training. And he was funny, man. He would say stuff like, you must move like a soko. You must move like a soko. This is really how he talked. I'm like, what the hell is he saying? I cannot understand. It's like, move like a soko. And it's like, if you slightly listen for it, he would probably be saying like, move like a circle, like move around. But the way he said it, man, it took me 3 months to figure that out. Move like a soko. Move like a soko. So anyway, I show up at the gym next day, and it's like, so I had the car, so I picked him up, and then he's like, we're going to drive down to Orange County. So we drove down to Orange County, and he's like, so I didn't know, so he's, what's going on, right? So we walk into this hall, man, for reals, like this massive hall with like 1,000 seats and a ring in the middle. And I was like, this ain't sparring. He had signed me up for a fight. I didn't even know.
Oh, wow. Christ, your life literally is a movie. It's hilarious.
Yeah, man. This is hilarious, man. It's so great. That was the funniest day ever, man. But so anyway, so I was like, so you walk in and then you signed up for this thing. It was like the Karate Kid thing. Like when they just walk in and sign up for the fight, right? So what's your name? And it goes, I didn't want to be known as Nicholas Pettas at that time because, I wasn't supposed to fight. And it was all in secrecy. So in Thailand, you adapt the name of your gym or your coach. So right. If it's the Saksan Janjira, it's the Janjira gym. So I was Nicholas Janjira. And so I stepped into the ring. There happened to be some Japanese people living in Orange County that actually went to see the fight, and they knew who I was. It was hilarious. And my opponent, man, this is even more crazy. That was Chris Carter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is Chris Carter before he was the K1 US champ and everything, before he blew up and got big and everything. He was strong as F-U-C-K, man. He was really strong. And I was like, it was a fight, man. We took 3 rounds. I think I dropped him either with low kicks or with punches in the last round, but I won the fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, and so after doing that, I went back to Japan, and then there was I think there was one fight or two fights before the All Japan the what is it, the K1 All Japan, whatever it was, the K1 Japan championships was.
Oh, the Grand Prix.
Yeah, the Grand Prix. Yeah, so I had like one or two fights before that, and then I was in the Japan championships, and yeah, well, after that it was really all just history. That was an amazing day. Beating Musashi in the final was like a big dream come true for sure.
Yeah, in front of 70,000 people. Crazy. Yeah. And
what was incredible about that experience though was I was it was the first time a foreigner had fought in the All Japan, the K1 Japan championships.
Yeah.
And man, the tension, the tension from the press conference onward was friggin' intense, man. It was just like you could cut through it in the air almost. But during that championships, something incredible happened because the whole crowd in the final started cheering for Pettas, like Pettas, Pettas.
Mm-hmm.
So here, a foreigner, like man, I was craving that recognition in Kyokushin. Like there was like I had given up on Kyokushin at that point because I knew it was never going to get it. I was never going to be accepted fully. I was never going to be judged fairly. And so here comes a K1. Foreigner walks in, and I completely won the crowd over. And when I won, everyone went nuts, man. It was the best feeling ever. Yeah. And then so slightly, looking back at it and I think about it, Kyokushin is what it is. I know how strong I was. I know how good I was, and I know how many times I got robbed. And I can't chew on that anymore. But that was my day. That was my day to shine, and it was the right day to shine against the right opponent, and everything just went right that day. So yeah, that was definitely probably the best day of my life ever.
I've seen that fight a lot myself, actually, or the whole tournament that night, and also I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, the axe kicks at the end. Andy Hoog. It was
that was a tribute to Andy Hoog, because he just passed away at that time. So, and obviously I was a big fan. I was a big fan. Like in the Uchi-deshi dormitory, when we where I slept, I had a clip out poster of Andy Hoog doing an axe kick pinned to the ceiling. So I'd be like lying there looking at that, but before I go to bed and sleep.
No, I always thought that was so cool when you ended it with that. It was it was one of those goosebumps memories.
Funny thing about actually, because I remember at that time I had a slight hernia. And so I had a torn, a hernia is a torn muscle, right? It's a ripped muscle. Yeah. So I had a hernia, and I hadn't actually done any sit-ups for like, I think almost 6 weeks leading up into that tournament. Like I couldn't do this stuff. So in the first fight, against Fujimoto, whatever his name is, Fujimoto, he dropped me with a body shot, and it was a real thing,
I remember that.
Yeah. Like my core during that tournament was completely messed up. I weighed in on the day at almost 109 kilos, and my training was crap. I just had a baby like a month before my second daughter was just born. I was crying babies at the house, a torn muscle in my groin, and really, man, no sparring partners or anything. It was a really tumultuous, crazy time during my life. But I had one goal. Sometimes, if you just have one goal that you can focus on, like incredible things happen. And that goal was, I just really, really, really wanted to beat Musashi.
that was it.
Like, that was my goal, because man, that dude had bailed on me twice, man. We were set up to fight 2 other times. And one time I was in Holland, man, or I was in, one time, the first time I was training up in Bellevue with Maurice Smith's gym, and he bailed on me. And then the second time I was training in Holland, and man, that training camp in Holland was no joke. I was staying in Johan Voss's house and living there, and he was training me every day in his backyard, man. And then 2 or 3 times a week, he would take me down into to Voss gym down in Amsterdam, because he lives like half an hour outside of the city on a farm. There was nothing there, man. Like, it was crazy. And then he'd take me down to spar against the team, which Ernesto Hus was on and everyone.
Oh, wow.
And man, it was just incredible. Like, this was the best training camp ever. like, because he was like in a completely different level. This guy, Johan Boss, sensei, and he is intense, man, like for real. And the fact that he asked me, he says, you should come and train at my place. Because he saw me fight Jerome Le Banner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the invitation came. He met me in the lobby of the hotel because he was there with one of the other fighters. And he says, Nick, you should come train with me. If you want to come train, you could stay at my house. And I didn't quite know what to think of that. I told Kyo Chin, I said, look, Johan Boss asked me if I want to go and train with him. And I'm like, I'm super honored. I was like, absolutely. Absolutely. Because Holland was the place to go, not to America. Not to LA and stuff like that. I should have gone to Holland straight away. Actually, when I was training in LA, not in LA, when I was training up in Bellevue, Nobu Hayashi, the guy that I fight in the second fight, by the way, he came and trained in Maurice Smith's gym also. And I told him straight away, I said, what are you doing here, man? You don't speak any English, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. What are you doing in America in a mediocre gym? Sorry, Maurice Smith, this is the truth though. In a mediocre gym, when you could go to Johan Boss Sports School, or you could go to Chakudiki, or you could go some other gyms. Like they have fantastic coaches and sparring partners. It's all in Holland, man. And he's like, okay. 2 years later, I see him come out of Chakudiki. I'm like, hey, man, this guy listened to what I said. That was hilarious. Yeah, and then I had to fight him in the ring, which was very emotional also. Yeah, I did a YouTube video about that fight. And he also ended up having leukemia.
Yeah.
And he was in a hospital for like, I think almost a year, man. People were not allowed to see him. He was super contagious and stuff. But he recovered and ended up opening up, Chakuriku, Japan. So, so good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's too many stories, man.
I know. I want to loop back around to where we talked at the beginning, like, and you were saying about Sosai and what he meant to you. I remember in an interview or something a long time ago, something about you shaking his hand for the first time, and like it was like a mitt of a hand.
Yeah. Well, so that I think I just posted that clip on my Instagram the other day. But yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a the first time I showed Sosai's hand, because and I can do it again because I'm really good at doing that scene because I've done it many times. So yeah, I actually do these. I do these motivational speaking seminars for like sometimes for these massive companies all over Japan and stuff like that. So I feel very blessed. But this experience about meeting Sosai for the first time was like, this is an incredible story. So we got to Hombu Dojo and I'm sitting down in the lobby. My branch chief was with me, so he was upstairs talking to Sosai for about 45 minutes or something like that. And then the intercom rings, and this bald Uchi-deshi was shaved head and everything. He runs over to me. He goes, he's saying, I don't know what he said, right? And I'm just like, oh, right? Shit, man, it's on now for real, right? So then we sprint up to the third floor where Sosai's office is, right? And then he turns to me, he goes, oh, shireshima, you want to get dame da yo. Oh, shireshima, you want to get dame da yo. And I'm like, I know Mawashigiri, that's about it. I said, that's it, right? And so anyway, so he steps in the door, goes, and then I go in and go, oh my God, for real. Sosai sits over there in behind the desk, and he slowly like raises up like this, like a bear coming out of a slumber. And then he looks at me and he extends his hand out and he goes, welcome to Tokyo. And then he walks over and shakes my hand. And I swear it was like this, it was not a hand. It was like touching the hand of a god for real. It was like, oh man, what happened for me is something that, and I started crying before because this is how emotional I am about this. I started shaking like my whole body. I almost passed out. I almost fainted for real. I was like, this is what happens to fans when they see Beatles for the first time. People faint, man. And I was like, it was the most bizarre out of body feeling and experience I've ever had in my life. And this is the root of everything. This is really that first handshake, man. It was just like, I will give you my life, and I've never felt that for anyone else ever.
Wow. Wow.
And that's the story. Yeah.
So what was it about his personality, presence that that made people, I mean, and Judd Reid talks similarly about him as well. What was it, I should say, past tense, about Sosai's presence and that brought that out of people?
It's such a fantastic question, but it's like if it's a complete out of body experience. I don't understand it. I don't understand it because he never taught us anything specifically special. He never taught us anything but kata and kihon. And then if we ever sparred with him, it was insane because he would hold the stick for the drum and he'd go, and then everyone goes, "Os," and he'd hit the drum, and then like 5 or 6 seconds later, and it was like, rotate. And we're like, what's going on, man? It's like, I didn't even get to throw a kick and the fight's already over. He was at a different level. It was so bizarre. It's like these gurus that they just have an aura about them that people are drawn to. I was completely drawn to. If he said kick higher, I would kick higher. Man, even though he didn't do anything specific, just being in his presence made you want to be better, made you want to kick better, made you want to be the guy that he's the one that he pulls you out in front of everyone and say, demonstrate the Maikyage. Right? We were doing Maikyage, man, and I remember kicking my chest with my knees, right? Because the legs were that high up. Me and Judd, are you kidding me, man? With the Uchi-deshi training classes and during the black belt classes and stuff like that, we were like, all over the place, man. High kicks and jumping kicks and everything. And it was always either him or me that Sosai would pull out. Or he would pull both of us out. And it was like, not right? So you get angry with everyone. It's not really angry. It just pretends to be angry. But it's like, people like, ooh, we're supposed to be scared now, right? And then he's like, Da Costa. He used to call me Da Costa because, he had this Nicholas Da Costa from Britain fighter one time. He remembered the Da Costa part of it. In the first 6 months, he called me Da Costa. Yeah, so and it's out in front, demonstrate the mic, and you go, that's what he sounded like.
Wow.
Yeah. This is the golden age. This is the golden age. I'm very, very proud of those years.
Of course, man. And I remember in your book, like, reading about like the Beast and Urasawa and Ikeda and Narashima and all these characters. They were just literally, it was like fiction.
But you see, so me and Judd, we became brothers, like, for real. He's definitely he's a year older than I am, and so I look up to him. He was a black belt, and he was already the lightweight, heavyweight, not light heavyweight. He was the lightweight Australian karate champion before he came to be an Uchi-deshi, right? His technique was incredible, incredible. He was so sharp. His kicks were so hard. It's in the book. I just went over that chapter the other day, actually, the first time we sparred, the first session I did. Man, he beat the crap out of me. Oh, well, talk about Beast or Razorback or whatever, man. He was the one that was the Razorback on me that day. And he dropped me with low kicks, man. I couldn't bend my knee for like a week or something. It was really, really painful. So he taught me a really important lesson very early on, is that know your place in the hierarchy, and know who your senpai is, and then also like squat. Squat a lot. Which we did. We did a lot. We did like 250 squats every morning. We ran for about 3-4 kilometers. Then it was 5 sets of 50 reps of push-ups on the knuckles, and 5 sets of 50 reps of squats, and 5 or 10 minutes on the jump rope also outside. This was daily routine in Uchi-deshis. And then we go inside in the first floor dojo, and we would do 250 sit-ups, also 5 sets of 50, and then like a minute like standing on your head, right? So that was just morning training every day. But me and Judd, man, we went through a period. So he was 1 year above me, and the first ever to graduate from Sosai Uchi-deshi program. He started as a black belt, which I actually think was the smart thing to do. If I had to go back, I would probably have liked to have kept my brown belt in the beginning. But I didn't, because the Japanese started as white belts, and so I started as a white belt there. But I was actually one step. I was at first Q, so I was just below black belt. Yeah. But it didn't matter, man. And by the time I was a yellow belt in Japan, like 3 months in after I got there, Sosai was like, "Well, why were you not in black belt class last night?" And I'm like thinking, "You not see the color of my belt?" So I got yelled at for not being in black belt class, and then the next black belt class I showed up for, it was like, like I was scared shitless because all the black belts, brown belts are in there, right? And then they're like looking at me, like staring me down, going, "What's this kid doing?" And they probably thought, well, he's Uchi-deshi, so he probably gets to get away with it. And then we all lined up, and I sat way down in the back, right? And then you beat the drum, and Sosai hears the drum from upstairs, and then he comes down. Everyone sits and waits for him and says that. And then so he comes down, and then he had this, this gaze where he's like, good. So he's like, and then he sat down. And from that day on, I was in all the black belt classes. So, and I was good enough anyway. So, I mean, it was okay. Yeah. But Judd, man, he, so we went through that 1 year together. So, like, for example, Mokaromo, a French guy, almost graduated, but he got kicked out like 3 weeks before his graduation. Yeah. He was the laziest guy ever, man. This is incredible. The excuses he had to come up for not training. It's like, dude, if you just stopped excusing and just did it, you would be done by now. He would go to length to not do training, man. But I mean, he ended up in prison and got out of prison. I don't know where he is now anyway. So, I mean, he was just not cut out to be that person, right? But the crazy thing was he had really, really good technique. Like his skill and kicking and smoothness, his movements were incredible. He spoke fluent Japanese. So it was really just a waste. So me and Judd spent 1 year together. Nathan Lago also, he also ended up going back to his Korean teacher and from, I think it's Sosai's nephew or uncle or something like that he was training under. And then so his sensei called him back during his second year. So he went back for a month, and then he came back to Japan to continue as an Uchi-deshi. But at that time, there was some other guys in the dojo that were also, I think Walter Snaubelt was there living for a while. It was me, and then there was Judd, and then there was it was just three, and then I'm not quite sure if there was someone else there. But so we all ended up sparring, and Nathan had been gone for a while and came back to this culprit of pit bulls. I mean, we were bulls back in those days. Like, I kid you not, this race of becoming the better was like on a daily struggle, man. Sparring sessions were like full on every time, right? And Walter Snaubelt was really strong too. And Nathan was just not at that level, to be honest. I mean, I love the guy. And I, you know what he did? He did something incredible, in my opinion. He went back and dedicated his life to karate. Like, for real. He really just loves karate, and then he's been doing it ever since, and he teaches it, and he inspires so many people. So I can't say it enough. I take my hat off for him. He really did something for real for karate. But at that time, and I have to be brutally honest here, at that time, he got his ass kicked badly, and he cracked under the pressure, and he ran away. Like, he ran away from it. But like I said, he's spent the rest of his life making up for it. So nothing but respect to the guy. Yeah.
And what do you think it like now, looking back, and you went through that and that brutal training for 3 years? How did it change you? How did it, like, if you had taken two paths, one that you hadn't gone through that program, and one now knowing that you went through it, like, how much of an effect do you think it had on your life?
Well, I wouldn't be here now, for one thing. I mean, I would have been back in Denmark. I would have gone back to school in Denmark, finished high school, and then probably gone on to university. And I don't know where I would have been. I would have probably just enjoyed karate in Denmark. I don't look. People don't understand this, man. When I heard that Sosai was alive and teaching, and that there was a program in Japan for 1,000 days of training, and that no foreigner had ever completed it. This is the only information I ever had about this, by the way. When I heard that, the first thing I said is, I'm going to be that guy. Like, there was no doubt in my mind. I went straight back to my mom's place and I said, look, I'm going to Japan for 1,000 days. And she's like, Here we go. But she knew that once I set my mind on something, nothing will stop me. So for my life, it's like really there is no with or without Uchi-deshi. And I got to go a little bit back because I kind of got a little bit sidetracked there. But the question really is like training like that and going through all that brutal training. The training was not brutal, man. I loved to train. I loved it. I would do 2 classes a day plus morning training. I would teach a class and I would do a class if I had the time for it. And then I would also do the morning training in the morning. And then we would be lifting weights and stuff. So I love training. It was insane how much I love training. I would be working on the bag all by myself for like an hour easily, just practicing kicks and stuff like that. But the thing that made it hard was that bunch of pit bulls that were just in the same environment. The Razorback, he was incredibly racist back in the day, and he was incredibly ferocious, and he was incredibly strong. And the first time I sparred him, he broke my rib, bam, with a middle kick, and I dropped down, like I dropped to the floor, I just sat straight down, and then I didn't know that you have to say you give up in Japanese, mighty masa. This concept does not exist in Denmark because no one ever spars that hard. So I had now gotten a broken rib, and then he says, "Mighty masta you down," like this, and then he's stomping on my head on the ground. And this is only 30 years ago, but this is the real thing that really happened. I was scared shitless, man. And so he hated the foreigners, like on a level it's not even funny, man. And then he then made this fighting squad, and Narashima was in that fighting squad. He was the leader of the gang, and then there was Narashima, Irisawa, and all those guys were all. They had this little fighting squad team, and I was scared shitless of them. But I had Judd. I had Judd, and so me and Judd, we trained and we sparred in the dojo, and we were always pushing each other, lifting heavier weights and just getting stronger, and so because of him, I got really good. Honestly, because of him. Without Judd for that 1 year, his last year when he was Uchi-deshi, I would not be where I am today.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like Judd had a huge impact in helping you there.
Massive impact. Yeah. He's insane, by the way. He's insane. And I'll tell you why. He has a switch that I will never have. I was maybe, not maybe, I would probably say that as a tournament fighter, I was probably better than he was. Yep. But he is a better fighter than me. That I will hands down say forever. You know, one afternoon he's like, we were talking about shin conditioning, right? Shin conditioning, and Judd's like, yeah, man, I just kick everything. I can kick anything, man. I can kick the pole. I can kick, if someone blocks me, I'm just gonna kick it. And I was like, bullshit. And I was like, you're not gonna kick someone on the shin on purpose. And he's like, yeah, man, let's try it. Let's do it right now. So we stood up. I mean, he was, I tell you, man, pit bulls. So we stood up, and he's like, when we started kicking each other like shin to shin, like this. Dude, I was like, one kick, and I was like, nah, I'm done. He was like, let's go again, man. Let's go again. I can do it. And I was like, no way, man. No way. So, Judd made me really, really strong. And the funny thing is, when Judd graduated, I was alone at home as a foreigner.
Yeah.
And they were really, at that time, it's just strange. There was a lot of foreigners that came and went, not living at the dojo, but just like training at the dojo. But Ronen Katz, for example, from Israel, was also living in Japan. He'd also left around the time that Judd left. And then some of the other Israelis that used to come and train, they all left. So there was actually a time at Hombu where I was literally the only foreigner. Like for almost 8 months, I think. There was like this 8-month block in time where I was the only guy. And then something really, really strange happened. The Razorback, as we used to call Sugimoto Senpai, came in and sat down and had dinner at the dorm, which I really frowned upon. At the time, I was just turned a third-year student, so I was top-notch in the dormitory. And I didn't like when the black belts came over. It was always bad news. There was always some shit going on. Like either they would force you to drink until you threw up, or they would. It was just never good news when the black belts were in the dorm. So he was sitting there having dinner calmly, and then I just came back from teaching a class or something like that, and I go in. I was like, right? Because I really don't like the guy. Like I really didn't like him. And then he's like, oh, Nicolas, just slept it. I was like, he's like, sit down. I was like, here we go. Anyway, so I sit down, and he looks at me with this nice little smile. So he's wearing glasses, so he fixes his glasses. He goes, you know, there's something I want to talk to you about. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I want you to join the fighting team. His fighting team, his squad. And I'm like,
what's the catch?
Exactly, right? What's the catch? And it's like, motherfucker, I've just spent the last 2 years calling you a razorback because you treated me and like shit, and you beat the shit. I've like gone through, you know, man, I spent like those 2 years trying not to spar that guy because I was scared of him. But I'd also spent the last year training really, really hard with Judd. And I felt pretty strong. Like, for example, I think the reason was that I fought in the Old Japan and I went to the second day. And none of the squad from his team went the second day in the Old Japan that year. None of them. Narashima ended up becoming like super champion many years in a row after that. But that year, that specific year, he hadn't gotten any results with this fighting squad that he had made. And he really wanted to make Honbu strong again. And he saw that I did better than anyone in the fighting squad in the Old Japan. So he's like, you should come and join the team. And you know what? There's that awkward silence when I was just sitting there looking at him going, you're fucking kidding me, right? And then I said, Us. I don't know where that Us came from, but I just don't know, man. It's like, how can you, I can't say no, right? How can I say no? Anyway, there's many stories from that fighting squad days, but to cut it really, really short, the first day I went in there, it was just one of those times when you know it's on, right? And then we were sparring, and then they rotated around, and then it came to me and him, and it was just war. Like, man, I didn't take a step back. He didn't take a step back. He was trying to, it was just like this, right? The clock ran out, beep, at 2 minutes. We still fought. Man, we kept, and there's that, I don't know, and this is what I'm saying, there are things you can learn in martial art that you can only learn in martial art, and only in Kyokushin you can learn. And that was one of those moments, like, it was just like, it was a test. Like, how good are you now? How strong are you? How long can you stick up with this, you know? So we fought for about another 30 seconds, like a crazy fight, right? And then naturally, at some point, there's this, mutual respect. And it's like, we never looked at each other the same way again. And I got to tell you, man, I love the guy now. We became really good friends after that. And it broke down all these barriers of all this racism that I thought that everyone's always talking about. Oh, the Japanese are racist. But it's bullshit. It's actually completely bullshit. They're not racist. They are just insecure.
Right.
And that is the truth. It's just really insecureness. Now, the thing that made me break all these barriers with that fighting squad was, for one, I spoke Japanese. And then when you can communicate with someone, you can understand what's going through their head. And you learned it really quickly. Yeah, I picked it up really fast. I was teaching, I got my black belt in 1 year, by the way. Yeah. I was teaching in Japanese classes at Honbu in my second year. Yeah, that's also another, it's another story, which is kind of funny, because I went for I went for a black belt test as a green belt. Yes, I know. I know. And Sosai's like, he was super excited about it. He's like, and he wouldn't let me do a 10-man kumite. It was a 20-man kumite for Nidan. He wanted me to go from green belt to Nidan. And it was pretty insane, man. And I had to do that, the 20-man up in, like, as the first guy up. Like, normally they bring in all the branch chiefs and everything. But it's like, no, we're going to have Nick do the first kumite of everyone. Because it's green belt. Yeah, he loved it. He loved it. I loved it. I mean, I love the attention. Come on, I can't. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was insane. It was insane, man. 20-man kumite, and you know, he was gonna give me the Nidan. He came down after my branch chief Umberto Boots had come all the way from Denmark to see this black belt test, because he just thought it was awesome that I was going for my black belt. And then Sosai had decided to give me the Nidan because I knocked guys out and I fought really well and I was really strong at the time. And then so then my branch chief and him had a conversation about giving me a shodan or a Nidan, and Sosai was like, he deserves a Nidan. This is amazing. And Sosai, I can do whatever I want, right? Yeah. It would have been super cool, but I mean, apparently Umberto Boots had told him that he's going to get a big head if you give him a knee down.
Which
and I already
might be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Sosai told me this actually later on. Like he came down when he had the morning ceremony and he was talking. He said, I talked to your branch chief. He told me not to give you a knee down, but I was gonna give it to you. And I was like, yeah, I was just happy to get a black belt. A black belt. That's something, right? Yeah.
And you have a black belt from Sosai.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are pretty rare.
Yeah. I'm never gonna not say that. Yeah, that's freaking amazing. Let me show you that black belt.
Oh, please.
Woo! There you go.
Look at that.
This is the real black belt from Sosai. And it's not even black anymore, man. Look at it. It's completely faded. It says Nicholas Pettas here. There's the Chokshin thing there. I put 3 stripes on it because I ended up as a 3rd dan. Yeah. But that was really all my goals. I never had any aspirations to become a 4th or 5th dan or anything like that. But this is the belt that I wore for 25 years.
lot of sweat in that belt.
Man, it's never been washed.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
It has been in the ocean. It has been to the winter camp. It's been under the waterfalls. It's been, but it's never been washed.
Wow. Now I'm getting emotional. So beautiful.
Yeah. I think, for belts, and some people, they wash their belts and stuff like that because, their mom put it in the washing machine or something like that. And I think it's okay for colored belts. But when you get your black belt, I think it is a transition going from being someone who is training karate to someone who is now practicing karate.
Yeah.
And I think once you get that black belt, your mindset should be more of a senpai in somehow. And that phrase senpai was super powerful for me. It's all in the book. It's going to come up after. Yeah. You can hear the stories about it. But they called everyone son. Even the Shihans from overseas, like for example, my branch chief Umberto Boots Sensei, which was a 5th dan, is like a Shihan, obviously, right? So, so they would call him Boots-san, not Boots Shihan. It was like Boots-san, or it would be like Howard Collins. Oh my God, Shihan Howard Collins came and stayed with me for a month in the dorm, and we trained together every day with Sosai. Every day we did like an hour session with Sosai going over the kata, because Shihan Collins had this vision that he wanted to clarify all the bunkai and everything in the kata and stuff like that. So he came to Japan and spent the month. We stayed in the dormitory together for a month, and I trained with him there. It's an amazing experience, actually. And he was also just Korin's-san. Like, he's the first foreigner to place 2nd in the All Japan way back when, like, he's probably considered like one of the first foreign Uchi-deshi ever. And back in those days, it wasn't like a specific like 1,000 days or 3-year course where you had like a graduation or anything. But he was one of the original Uchi-deshi. And to call someone like that just a son, like Mr. Collins, I found it very strange. Like, why? Because we go through the same training, we do the same test. We should get the same honor of being. My kohai should call me senpai, right? So I started making sure that my kohai started doing that, and the Uchi-deshi started calling people by their proper rank. So I changed that at Hombu.
Oh wow!
Yeah, literally that black belt changed that.
Wow, that's impressive.
Because when I put that black belt on for the first time, I made sure that my kohai called me senpai. So I educated them one at a time, and if they didn't listen, I would beat them up. It was pretty simple.
like listening to you tell all these stories and stuff, and you can see the love in your eyes and stuff. Was it so you walked away from Kyokushin at some point? Was it because that you just weren't getting that respect like in the All Japans and stuff? And how much resentment are you still holding there for that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so the transition was, how does this go? The transition was when I moved to, at 26, when I was 26, I was done.
Yeah.
Mentally with Kyokushin. Not with Kyokushin, don't get me wrong here. Not karate, not Kyokushin karate, but I was done with the organization I was in. And I'll be completely honest and open about it. Matsui Kancho, the way he ran his organization, the way he treated me in the end, and the things that he has done to me is unforgivable. And it's not just him; it's his secretary. His secretary, Tomita-san, is completely insane. For real. I have zero respect for that woman. I will never follow whatever she says. Like this struggle. It started when I was 26, and I saw an opportunity. I was offered to open a dojo in Australia, and I said yes to it. I said, yeah, it would be awesome. Like kangaroos and koala bears, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah, this would be awesome.
And Judd.
And then the dojo, right? So. And then when I said yes to that, like that same week, I got an offer to fight in the K1. And so my transition out of Kyokushin was very easy for me because I just, like I said, at one point I said, I need to stop training now because it's messing me up. I have to go back to basics and learn what kickboxing really is, or Muay Thai really is. And so it faded out that way. And then that organization, that Matsui Tomita, a combination of how they treated people was completely unforgiving. And I lost everything, lost all respect for it. And it's like, you know what, it's not worth it. And I could just open my own dojo. So I broke away and I opened up something called Nicholas Pettas Dojo. The spirit of samurai, Nicholas Pettas Dojo, basically. And at the time, I didn't know how powerful politics were. I thought because I was already Japanese champion in the K1, I thought, fuck, I could just get a fight in the K1. But then, so politics hindered me from that. So they kept me away from fighting in Japan for 5 years. 5 of my best years, by the way. Like,
that's crazy.
We're talking probably close to $2 to $3, maybe $1 million that I actually potentially lost out on there.
Crazy.
And yeah, it's so I have just no respect for it. You know how I got back into K1 was that I found a sponsor that was he would just do anything it took to get me to get back into it. He was such a fan of me, and he's like, he bought my rights to get back and fighting in the K1.
Wow.
He bought his way in there. Yeah.
Wow.
He's also the reason I'm still here, because I went bankrupt. Dude, I had no work. I didn't have a dojo that was making any money. I thought I was going to be a TV star because I was pretty famous in Japan at the time. I was on TV a lot and doing like dramas and movies and stuff like that. But it's not really a career that you can make a good living on in Japan. There were some foreign talents, but I wasn't as good as those foreign talents that were making money. I would never get to that level because I was always just seen as the K1 guy,
Okay.
So money was running out. I need to. Oh, sorry, my phone just cut out. I got to put a battery in it.
Oh yeah, sorry, we're rambling on. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right. Where does this go? There. All right. Well, you can cut that part out if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to get back to the story, I was running out of money. Like all the savings, my wife and I, we were really bad with spending money because we were at a point where I was making so much money in the K1. It was like money was so easy. I was getting jobs around here and there and that. And then when I quit Kyokushin and I couldn't get a fight in K1, that money ran out pretty fast. And something incredibly silly happens. And I think it happens to any sports athlete that is not guided by some kind of organization properly. It is that when you're making this amount of money this year, you get taxed for the next 2 years on that amount.
Yes.
And so your payments are like dropped down to zero, right? And I'm still getting taxed. I had a huge tax there, like a huge tax there. And I was just like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to go downstairs, take my Harley Davidson because I owned a Harley at the time. I'm going to take it down to the store and then I was going to sell it. And then I'm going to buy some tickets and then we'll just take the whole family back to my mom's place in Denmark. I was at that point.
Wow.
And so long story. This is a story for another time, but But yeah, many things happened, and I ended up being very fortunate in meeting the right people exactly at the right time for me to be able to stay here and eventually go back to fighting and eventually, like fulfill some of the dreams that was for me. So, but this question that you really asked is like, how much resentment do you have? I have zero tolerance for Matsui's group, zero, like zero, like yeah, that's it. And it's this is really the root of why I don't do karate now. It's not because I still have Nicholas Pettas Dojo is still something that exists.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
One of my
I'm familiar with it.
Sorry?
I'm familiar with that dojo. I saw it and stuff, so that's what I was going to ask you about. So I knew you still had a dojo.
Yeah, so it's not my dojo per se. It's just my name on it, but which is okay because it's one of my Uchi-deshi that was Uchi-deshi of mine. Moved back to Sendai, and now he's got a dojo up there, and they're also struggling right now, so it's really hard for them to. But yeah, so the name is still there. I still have a guy called Leona that fights now and is the champ in Japan right now in Crush. He's got a couple of champion belts actually. He fights under my name, Leona Pettas.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Crush is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually an awesome kid. He's not a kid anymore actually, but he's pretty awesome. But I still have friends like Nita-san has this Bungling Bay gym. That's a kickboxing gym that I have a very strong connection with also. And it's like, it feels like people say, ask me if I'm retired or why you pulled away. For me, it's I never pulled anywhere. I never stopped anything. Maybe I stopped going to a dojo or running a dojo, but you can hear when you talk to me, there's nothing gone. It's all there, man. It's my whole life. It's really
that's what I wanted to know, and I think that's what other people want to know, and you definitely show it now. Nothing's changed.
I'm embracing it. I'm embracing it now. I kept it shut down and shut off for a long time because I went to CrossFit for business reasons, and I made a conscious decision that I wanted to become successful at CrossFit as a business owner.
Well, I mean. Yeah, it's really great. I mean, you're the Reebok CrossFit ambassador in Japan. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I've been the ambassador for Reebok for now 8 years.
Yeah,
and my partner Aya in the business is now, she went from being having what was it, like 50 followers on Instagram to now 500,000 followers on Instagram. So
that's awesome.
She became really, really successful. And so, but back in the day when we were about to open a business, I actually pulled her in and taught her everything about what I knew about CrossFit back in the day. And she was a model and or aspiring model at the time. And but we agreed on one thing. We agreed on like really, really just focusing on CrossFit as a business and just try and get that right. And that meant one thing for me. It meant then that I could not open up a big spacious gym that would be great for karate and then just like rely on karate. Like I wanted to be pure just for CrossFit. So I stayed away from martial arts because of that.
Makes sense.
And we are but we are the most successful CrossFit in Japan. So I mean that goal is kind of accomplished, and now that with the quarantine, we're being closed for 2 months, which is, I'm not even scared about that. I'm not even worried about that. We run online classes, and once we open the door, which is going to hopefully be on June the 1st, people will come back, and new people will come in.
For sure.
And yeah, it's good. But so, yeah, I mean, in the beginning of the talk, it's like, what's all these emotions that I have and how do I address it? And it really comes down to my book. Yes, I'm going to tell you about my book. And so, just going through it again, and and I think it's really about finding the right motivating people to be with and the right teacher. It's really important with the teacher. If you find a good teacher, you just stick with it because it's amazing what kind of things you can learn from that.
Yeah. And your teacher was Sosai. Like it's
yeah, exactly right. And it's exactly the point of it. And then so he passed away, and it's like it's honestly when he passed away, I was okay to go back to Denmark. The only problem really was that I was getting really good. Like I was getting really good, and I was like, and Sosai loved strong fighters. I knew that, and I wanted to prove that one of Sosai's Uchi-deshi could be successful as a fighter. And I think it did all right.
I would say you did all right. I mean, you're still revered to this day. Like, it's incredible. So do you think you'll strap that belt back on?
I do once in a while. I go up to Sendai, and then I teach a class up there, or I run something there once a year. Is probably as much as it gets to around these days. But I'm not sure about this belt.
No, but I'm using that metaphorically. But I mean, you're Nicholas. You're so respected to this day in the Kyokushin community, karate community, knockdown, full contact, whatever you want to call it, the different splinter groups that have happened. I mean, like, I don't know what to say. Like, people want you.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's very humbling. It really is. And the truth is, I get invited to come and teach on camps all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like people they I mean, every year, every year, I always get invited to, not so much now, but it's been 5-6 different camps, because if I go to one camp, then everyone else is like, hey, he went for a camp. I was like, we can get him. And then, so it just goes like that. But the truth is, I've been so focused on making my business successful for 7 years. I could not take the time away from the business.
Makes sense.
But I am pretty sure that I will be open to going and teaching on camps and spreading the love. It's it sounds so weird to say it like that, but I think that my experiences are valuable to people, and it's not fair to shut it off. It's not fair to keep it all for myself, and that's why I'm starting to. The book is my first outlet, but I'll probably end up doing some camp somewhere or come visiting some of the dojos and stuff like that. And I think it's just part of the natural process. But the problem is, and I have to focus on my business now more than ever.
Of course.
And that is priority number one. So
of course.
If someone sees this and says, hey man, Nathan is ready to do a camp, let's invite him. I want to warn you now that it has to be really planned out properly for me to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But I mean, there's so few people now with a direct, how do I say this, almost like a pipeline back to what Sosai's teaching was and stuff, like yourself, Judd, whatever. This is a very, very small group, and I think that's why there is so much focus on that. I mean, and on your side of the fence, it's got to be difficult too to have that kind of pressure, if you will. But I mean, you guys were there, you guys lived it more than anyone, because you were in there in that program for 1,000 days, 3 years of your lives.
Yeah, we stayed over at Sosai's house.
Right.
We went to Sosai's house on shifts, to do the protecting him and
the
stuff
guarding.
Like
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I literally stayed at Sosai's house, man. It's insane.
Yeah. It is insane. It's incredible. Yeah. So I think that's why there is so much interest and whatever in it. So no pressure, but I think you should.
Yeah. No, yeah, man. Dude, I know I will. It's just I had to turn it down because of the business for so long now.
Yeah.
And I don't like turning stuff down like that. So, but I mean, let's see. Let's take it one step at a time.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Once the business is open again, and life gets back to normal, send me an email. We can
yeah. But on that note, though, so cutting COVID out of it, up to that point, you'd really built up the Reebok CrossFit, that box, really, really well. It seemed like you were doing really, really well anyway.
Thank you. It's been been an incredible journey, to be honest. I mean, it's for one thing, at 40, when I turned 40 and I started to focus on CrossFit as a business, it was like a turning point where it's a completely different career. And I got divorced at the same time because I literally knew that I couldn't take them with me on that journey. I just knew that. I still provide for them, so it's all good. I'm very friendly, very good terms with my kids and everything like that. So they're very lovely. The 3 girls that I have, I took them all to Denmark last year to spend the Christmas with my mom and stuff like that. So it was really, I'm really blessed. The girls are great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Life's good.
Life is actually pretty good, man. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm
Yeah.
loving this open channel of this that you have a podcast, and I'm now part of it, and being able
Yeah.
to open up to a whole bunch of people. And I shall say it again, it's all about the book.
Yes.
Yes. If you missed it, it's all about the book.
Yes. But again, I'm going to reiterate too, and Nicholas has not paid me. It's a fucking amazing book. Excuse my language, but it's one of the most inspirational, especially if you look at something from a martial arts point of view. It's one of the most inspirational books I've ever read. It's
Yeah.
really, really well done. So yes, I'm looking
And
forward to the audio portion with your own ad libs and stuff. I think
man,
that'd
it's
be
not
pretty.
an audio book. It's like a director's
Exactly.
cut behind the scenes
But
thing.
that's what it should be. That's awesome. That's what people want to hear, man. Like people can
Yeah.
read the books for themselves, but to hear you in your own voice, the
Yeah.
author, and especially if you go off on a tangent because something reminds you. So when I saw that clip of you doing that the other day, I was like, yes, that's the path you need to go.
Yeah. And it just came completely natural, man. It's good. It's good. I think the coolest thing is it's all free. I mean, you just literally just log in on YouTube, and then
Yeah.
people can watch it for free,
Yeah.
And it's my gift. Yeah, it's my gift from Sosai.
Let's wrap it there. That was perfect. And
Yeah.
thank you for giving me this gift. So that when this goes out, it'll be my birthday. So thank you so much for giving me this on my birthday. I really appreciate it, and giving me, I guess, a little touch of Sosai as well. Now I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
A lot of us obviously never got a chance. So it's through people like yourself. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this, sharing all those memories. This has been absolutely amazing, man. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome. It's been an honor, man. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Stay safe. Stay strong.
Thanks. See you, Nicholas. Us.
Yeah. Us.